Chapter 1021. Kuangren fell and the world prospered. Without the suppression of Chu Kuangren, all sorts of demonic geniuses emerged like mushrooms after the rain. They began to stir up trouble and lead the way in this era. Meanwhile, in the 8 trigrams furnace, the 6 Ding heavenly flames burned ferociously. Amidst the endless flames, Chu Kuangren activated his 2 supreme treasures, the Origin of Creation Pearl and the Black Lotus of Apocalypse, to resist the heavenly flames. However, even so, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. I need to think of a way to leave as soon as possible. Chu Kuangren muttered. Although he had an immortal body and an indestructible will, he did not want to waste time here. He pointed his sword finger and condensed his celestial elemental energy. A beam of sword energy suddenly broke through the air and slashed the wall of the 8 trigrams furnace. With a boom, the celestial elemental energy exploded, but the 8 trigrams furnace remained unscathed. This 8 trigrams furnace is a divine tool for refining pills. It is indestructible. My current cultivation is far from enough to break it. He took out a golden core. It was the golden pill of 9 transformations that he obtained from the 8 trigrams furnace. Those experts are willing to take out a golden 9 revolutions pill as bait. Shall AI analyze it? It's the golden 9 revolutions pill, half raw and half cooked. Consuming it will allow one's cultivation to soar. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment. A half-cooked golden 9 transformation pill? Heh, no wonder they're willing to take it out. These almighty beings are really stingy. There was a saying about raw and ripe pills. A fully cooked elixir was the most complete elixir. A half-cooked elixir was a half-cooked elixir that had not been completely refined. Its effects would not be as good as a fully cooked elixir. Even so, the value of this 9 transformations golden pill was still extraordinary. It was enough to raise Chu Kuangren's cultivation by several levels. However, according to his estimation, even if he were to become a 9th grade golden immortal, it would still be difficult for him to break this 8 trigrams cauldron. Furthermore, the most urgent matter at hand is to resist the 6 Ding heavenly flames that are constantly burning. Chu Kuangren looked at the flames around him and said, "The 6 Ding heavenly flame was formed by the 8 trigrams cauldron converting the heaven and earth spirit chi. As long as the heaven and earth spirit chi in the outside world was not exhausted, the 6 Ding heavenly flame would be endless until the cauldron was completely refined." Wait, heavenly flame, he seemed to have thought of something and took out a fiery red crystal. The crystal was engraved with countless mysterious characters that recorded a body tempering technique known as the Drought Demon True Body. The Drought Demon True Body can fuse with all the flames in the world and temper one's physical body. If I were to use the 6 Ding heavenly flames to temper it, the effects would definitely be pretty good. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Thinking of this, he began to comprehend the Drought Demon Real Body. With his comprehension ability, even if the Drought Demon Real Body was an incomparably top-notch body refining method, it didn't take long for him to completely comprehend it. On this day, Chu Kuangren grabbed a ball of 6 Ding heavenly flames and activated his Drought Demon True form. He absorbed the heavenly fire into his body and tempered it. A fiery light flashed on his immortal body, and the heavenly fire was completely absorbed by him. Too little. This bit of heavenly fire is far from enough. Chu Kuangren kept the Black Lotus of Apocalypse. In an instant, the heavenly fire that had penetrated the divine pearl of creation but was blocked by the Black Lotus of destruction immediately surged forward and completely engulfed him. Even his body, which was as tough as immortal gold, was being incinerated one after another. However, with the immortal body activated, his burnt physical body quickly recovered. Chu Kuangren immediately activated his Drought Demon Real Body. Boom! The surrounding flames shook violently. The moment the incomparably violent flames entered his body, they began to brutally destroy him. His internal organs, meridians, and bones were gradually burned into nothingness by the heavenly fire. However, with the help of the immortal body, he gradually recovered. The heavenly fire and the immortal energy were competing with each other. One was destroying, while the other was reviving. Throughout this process, Chu Kuangren's expression did not change. He fully activated the drought demon real body and refined the heavenly fire to temper his body. Time passed day by day. The heavenly fire's damage to Chu Kuangren was gradually weakening, but his physical body was gradually strengthening. If the physical body of a golden immortal was divided into 9 grades, and Chu Kuangren was previously at the 2nd or 3rd grade, then he was now at least at the top 3 grades. Moreover, it was still constantly improving. This 8 trigrams cauldron is really a good place to cultivate. Chu Kuangren opened his eyes and could not help but exclaim in amazement as he felt the explosive increase in his physical strength. The endless 6-ding heavenly fire was equivalent to having an endless supply of physique refining resources. Then he removed the divine creation origin bead and completely exposed his body to the 6-ding heavenly fire. An even more ferocious flame swept towards him, but he fearlessly absorbed it. He realized that the 6-ding heavenly fire also contained a large amount of pil qi. Absorbing the heavenly fire to temper one's body could not only improve one's physical body, but it could also increase one's cultivation level. This 8 trigrams cauldron is a divine alchemy tool, so it's normal for it to contain pil qi. What an unexpected gain! Those great ones who schemed against Chu Kuangren would never have thought that the 8 trigrams cauldron that they treated as a killing weapon would instead become his best cultivation tool. Chu Kuangren focused on refining the heavenly fire. Meanwhile, in a certain space within the 8 trigrams cauldron, Honorable Master Hercules, who had turned into the cauldron's item spirit, was immersed in countless alchemy knowledge, unable to extricate himself. He did not even know what Chu Kuangren's current situation was. In his opinion, under the 8 trigrams cauldron's refining mechanism, no matter how powerful Chu Kuangren was, he would not be able to escape death. This is amazing. So this is the refining method of the 9 transformations golden pill. So that's how it is. Honorable Master Hercules looked at the countless alchemy knowledge with a fanatical look on his face. His research lasted for 20 years. However, to him, these 20 years were like the blink of an eye. Just as he was immersed in the ocean of alchemy knowledge, an unusual fluctuation suddenly came from the 8 trigrams cauldron. What's going on? Honorable Master Hercules was stunned for a moment. His consciousness spread out from the mysterious space and began to inspect the situation within the cauldron. However, soon after, he saw a gigantic fireball floating in the center of the cauldron. The heavenly fire around it was all absorbed by that fireball. A figure could be vaguely seen within the fireball. There was someone inside. Honorable Master Hercules was instantly dumbfounded. What's going on? Then, he seemed to have thought of something and his face was filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Of course, he knew that there was someone inside the 8 trigrams cauldron. 20 years ago, there was a person trapped inside the 8 trigrams cauldron. In his opinion, that person should have been burned to ashes by the heavenly fire a long time ago. Why? Why is this person still here? Just as Honorable Master Hercules was in shock and confusion, he heard a series of thumping sounds coming from within the gigantic fireball. That was the sound of a heartbeat. However, this heartbeat was as deep as thunder, and it carried an extremely mysterious rhythm. Every time it beat, it brought a heavy pressure to Guru Guhi's consciousness. After all, he was a golden immortal before he turned into an item spirit. Yet now, just the sound of his opponent's heartbeat alone was enough to bring pressure to his consciousness. What exactly happened to him? While Honorable Master Hercules was puzzled, the fireball shrunk like lightning and was absorbed into Chu Kuangren's body. A flawless immortal body suddenly appeared. Chapter 1022. After Chu Kuangren left the academy, he followed Lan Yu straight to the 5 Elements Mountain. His trip to the 5 Elements Mountain was purely out of interest. He wanted to see if Yuan Zhan could invite some decent sky prides. Besides, some people that he was familiar with might be there too. On the way there, he did not miss out on the lucky draw. In the 20 years that he was trapped in the 8 trigrams furnace, he would occasionally do the lucky draw. However, at his level, there were very few things that he could draw that were useful to him. Apart from some top-notch deity and supreme deity rewards, the rest of the rewards were dispensable to him, so he kept them in the universe dimension in his sleeve. After coming out of the 8 trigrams furnace, he handed the rewards to his clone. Some of them were used as resources to form an underground organization, while the rest was sent back to Firmament Star. Congratulations, host, for drawing a deity random upgrade card. The reward that he drew this time surprised Chu Kuangren quite a bit. Random upgrade card. As the name suggested, it was a card that could randomly upgrade one of Chu Kuangren's abilities. It could be a cultivation level, a physique, or a divine ability. It was a very useful reward. If he could randomly upgrade his cultivation level, would he be able to randomly upgrade himself to the Grand Heavenly Realm? Chu Kuangren thought to himself. He was now a 9th grade Golden Immortal, which was not far from the Grand Heavenly Realm. Moreover, his physical body had already condensed the Grand Heavenly Realm, so he could even fight against some Grand Heavenly Realm cultivators. Use. Chu Kuangren took out the random upgrade card and used it immediately. In an instant, he felt a ball of energy scurrying around his body as if it was looking for a target. In the end, the energy went straight into his consciousness and merged with the 3 golden souls. Random ability card successfully used. Soul strength increased. Boom. Chu Kuangren felt as if his mind had exploded, and the 3 golden souls in his consciousness bloomed with a dazzling golden brilliance. The 18 transformations ternary soul refinement technique also began to circulate on its own. The 14th transformation, the 15th transformation. The golden brilliance became more and more intense until it enveloped his entire consciousness. However, when the 18 transformations ternary soul refinement technique reached the 16th transformation, Chu Kuangren felt that his soul had undergone some sort of transformation. It was as if his thoughts could leave his body and wander into the void and enter the seamless realm with just a thought. It was an extremely strange feeling. Great Void Realm. My soul has left the Golden Soul Realm and reached the virtualized realm. Roaming the great void with a single thought, observing the entire universe. Chu Kuangren's face lit up with joy. It was very difficult to improve one's soul realm, and the higher one went, the harder it would be. Even if one was at the Grand Heavenly Realm, it would not be easy for one's soul realm to reach the Grand Virtual Realm. Chu Kuangren moved his mind and a magnificent lotus bud suddenly appeared on top of his head. The flower bud slowly opened, revealing 7 petals. If someone were to witness this scene, they would definitely be incomparably shocked. The 3 flowers above the crown was the symbol of the Golden Immortal Realm. After his soul realm was upgraded, Chu Kuangren was already half a step into the Great Luo Realm. The first Golden Immortal Realm, the Triflower Realm. The 3 flowers here are the Immortal Energy Flower, Longevity Flower, and Soul Flower. Logically speaking, the Golden Immortal Realm condenses the Immortal Energy Flower before condensing the Longevity Flower, and then condensing the Soul Flower. However, I've done the opposite and condensed the Soul Flower first. Chu Kuangren shook his head and smiled, but he did not care much about it. After all, his path of cultivation had long been very different from ordinary people. Condensing the Soul Flower first was just child's play to him. After his soul realm was upgraded, Chu Kuangren was satisfied and looked forward to his trip to the 5 Elements Mountain even more. The 5 Elements Mountain. According to the ancient legends of the Immortal Realm, this was the place where the ape ancestor sealed himself. It was said that the ape ancestor was blessed by the heavens and was born with supreme talent. Throughout his path of cultivation, it could be said that he had advanced by leaps and bounds without any obstacles. However, because of his stubborn nature, he had caused a lot of trouble. One of the biggest incidents was when the ape ancestor and his staff attacked the immortal court of Kunlun. That battle was so intense that the entire immortal court suffered heavy casualties, but the ape ancestor was also injured quite badly. Although he managed to keep his life, he had to recuperate for a long time. The place where he recuperated was this 5 Elements Mountain. I heard that after the ape ancestor wreaked havoc in the immortal court, he felt that there was a flaw in his temperament. He was easily angered and irritable. Although he was talented, he never had the chance to attain the great Tao. Therefore, he sealed himself in this 5 Elements Mountain for 500 years and meditated on his Taoist core. When he came out, he achieved the Taoist unification realm, which became a legend. At the foot of the Five Elements Mountain, a cultivator was relishing the rumors of the immortal ancient era. The surrounding cultivators were mesmerized by the story. "Oh my God, the ape ancestor is amazing." Before he sealed himself in the Five Elements Mountain, he was already able to wreak havoc in the immortal court when he wasn't even in the Taoist unification realm. That was the immortal court of the immortal ancient era. The immortal court of Kunlun, which was guarded by the 6 emperors, was extremely powerful and was the overlord of this world. How could a grand Luo like him be able to wreak havoc there and not die? Of course. The ape ancestor was good at fighting and his combat strength was unparalleled. It's not impossible for him to challenge someone of a higher cultivation realm. That's not all. I heard that the ape ancestor wreaked havoc in the immortal court and stole many precious medicinal pills from the immortal court's elder lord. Later, he was thrown into the 8 trigrams furnace by the elder lord, where he cultivated a pair of divine eyes and the invincible Vajra body. It was also because of this encounter that his combat strength improved to the next level, and he could even fight against a Taoist unification realm cultivator. Now that you mention it, it reminds me of Chu Kuangren. He was also thrown into the 8 trigrams furnace to cultivate, and his strength improved tremendously too. This 8 trigrams furnace is such a scam. The immortal court has used it against their enemies twice, and those enemies only became stronger because of it. Many cultivators discussed among themselves. At the mention of Chu Kuangren, who had recently reappeared, everyone could not help but lament. I wonder if Chu Kuangren will come this time when Yuan Zhan invited the Sky Prides. Someone looked at the peak of the Five Elements Mountain. At the top of the mountain, there was a majestic figure holding a long golden rod standing upright. It was a giant ape. Standing hundreds of meters tall, he wore a golden circlet on his head, and his entire body emanated a monstrous battle chi. The muscles on his body bulged like hills, as if they were made of molten iron, giving off an indestructible vibe. This giant ape standing at the peak was the 100,000 Mountains battle clan's Yuan Zhan. Rumor had it that Yuan Zhan was originally just a top-notch sky pride, not even at the level of a demonic genius. However, he later obtained the godly metal and cultivation technique left behind by the ape ancestor in the Starry Sky Arena. That was how he rose to the top. After returning from the Starry Sky Arena, he went into closed-door cultivation in the Five Elements Mountain. After he came out, his combat strength skyrocketed, and he directly climbed to the 10th place on the Immortal Leaderboard. He was not much weaker than the 7th place on the Immortal Leaderboard, the Golden Crow clan's young forefather. He was known as one of the most outstanding future demon kings in the 100,000 Mountains. Someone's here. At that moment, the ape ancestor looked into the distance with a serious expression. A golden ray flew over and turned into a golden-robed figure with a long blade on his back. It's the 27th place on the Immortal Leaderboard, Gu Heaven Blade. To make it easier to read next time, you can click on the bookmark button below to record this entry. Randomly upgraded 1 ability, Soul Flower, Legend of the Ape Ancestor. Read the record. You will see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like 10 consecutive draws and become invincible, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 1023. Inside the battleship's pavilion. Chu Kuangren took out the painting that he obtained from Helu Yingyi and opened it. The green-robed middle-aged man in the painting appeared once again, and a majestic sword intent poured out as if he was performing a peerless sword technique in front of Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren then sent his immortal consciousness into the painting. Soon he arrived at a lush landscape. In front of him, the green-robed middle-aged man smiled at him before he thrust his sword at him. The sword intent surged and was extremely majestic. Chu Kuangren focused his sword fingers and his sword intent flowed as he clashed with the incoming attack. A clang was heard. Sword against sword, sword techniques, and sword intents intertwined. In the blink of an eye, they had clashed more than 100 times. During this battle, Chu Kuangren was not only honing his own sword techniques, but he was also constantly understanding Zhang Fengzi's sword intent and using it for his own use. Sword, tempest. Sword, reincarnation of life and death. Sword, shattering yin and yang, stabilizing heaven and earth. Sword, incinerate. Sword, immortal slayer. All kinds of exquisite sword techniques were unleashed by Chu Kuangren's hands. Among them were the Zhou sword, immortal slaying sword qi, 9-layered sword barrier, astonishing god sword art, and other famous 24 sword techniques in the Pangu cosmos. These sword techniques collided with the 1,000-elephant sword art, creating endless inspiration in Chu Kuangren's mind, forming a brand new sword technique. Calling it a sword technique was too general. It could not be considered a sword technique at all. There were no techniques, no techniques, no techniques, and even infinite techniques. It was a sword technique, a technique that used the sword. It was not a sword technique because there were no techniques or techniques. In other words, Chu Kuangren's every move was a sword technique, and wherever his sword intent reached, everything was a sword. This was an incomparably mysterious realm. Gradually, Zhang Fengzi, who was residing in the painting, could see that Chu Kuangren's current sword Dao realm was so high that it was vaguely above his own. After all, he was already an unification Daoist. However, Chu Kuangren, a Grand Luo, had a sword Dao realm above him. Although the realm was not the same as the cultivation level, it was still quite unbelievable. Not only that, but he also realized that his sword intent was gradually being analyzed and mastered by Chu Kuangren. Sword, eternal wind. Chu Kuangren focused his sword finger and casually swiped it in the air. The sword intent that he had obtained from Zhang Fengzi was integrated into his sword technique. This stroke seemed ordinary and unremarkable. But the wind rose from duckweed, and the sword intent of the long wind blended into the wind. In the blink of an eye, it had already crossed 10,000 mountains. Zhang Fengzi's clothes were torn apart and he was sent flying. The sword intent on his body dissipated, and he could not help but look at Chu Kuangren with an unprecedented look of admiration. What sword technique is this? It was his first time witnessing Chu Kuangren fusing thousands of sword intents into his body. Every single move he made was a peerless sword technique. Swordsmanship is formed by the heavens. You can call it heavenly sword. To Chu Kuangren, the word sword techniques no longer held any meaning, be it the fairy slaying sword technique or the manifestation sword technique. These cultivation methods had already been completely understood by him. They had already surpassed the moves themselves and weren't restricted to just one move or one style. There were no moves, no forms, infinite moves, infinite forms. It was the heavenly sword. At this moment, in terms of Chu Kuangren's sword Dao realm alone, there were only a few people in both the Heaven Origin and Pangu Cosmoses who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Even the Sword Spirit Clan's Divine Swordsman King could only be on par with him at best. What a heavenly sword! It's a pity that if I'm fated to meet you in the future, I'll definitely spar with you. I'll be waiting for you anytime. Chu Kuangren said calmly, and then his immortal consciousness exited the painting. The sword intent in the painting was still there, but it was slightly weaker than when he used it earlier. It seemed like this painting could only be used a limited number of times. In the end, he simply gave this painting to Ling Fei and Han Xingyu. Zhang Fengzi's sword intent would still be of some help to them. Unfortunately, this sword intent was obviously left behind by Zhang Fengzi before he ascended to the path integration realm. Otherwise, its value would be even higher. The Galactic Godly King's ancient path was located on a huge ancient planet. Currently, many people had gathered on this ancient planet. Everyone was waiting for the ancient planet to open so that they could enter and explore it. Among them, the ones who attracted the most attention were undoubtedly the demonic geniuses on the Heavenly God leaderboard. A wave of cold chi spread in all directions, freezing everything within a 10,000-mile radius. A blue-haired young man stood on top of this block of ice. His expression was cold, and no one dared to approach him. This person was the Frosty Sky Clan's demonic genius, the 13th on the Heavenly God leaderboard, Leng Wufeng. He was the most powerful demonic genius among those present, so naturally, he attracted a lot of attention. Lung Wufeng's aura has become much stronger. Indeed. I heard that he has already completed the 3-flower realm and has mastered the 5 frost techniques. I'm afraid he's not much weaker than the monsters in the top 10. That's possible. The 11th ranked Luo Shui, the 12th ranked Crimson Dragon Shadow, and the 13th ranked Lung Wufeng. These 3 have the highest chance of challenging the top 10. Just as the crowd was discussing among themselves, a dragon's roar came from afar. A crimson dragon shadow with a pair of wings on its back soared into the sky, and its violent domineering aura instantly swept across the entire place, shocking everyone. The crimson dragon shadow landed on the 10,000-mile frozen land, and raging flames burned out. The ice and snow melted, instantly turning the place into a scorching hell. Lung Wufeng's eyes narrowed, and the cold qi from his body poured out. Ice and fire confronted each other, and the surrounding area suddenly fell into a standoff of ice and fire. The Crimson Dragon Shadow is here. What a powerful pressure. It seems that Lung Wufeng isn't the only one who has improved. The Crimson Dragon Shadow has also grown a lot. Everyone was discussing. Lung Wufeng looked at the giant dragon in front of him and said indifferently, "I don't mind fighting you before entering the Divine King of the Galaxy's ancient path." Hey, is that so? That's more than I could ask for. The Crimson Dragon Shadow flashed with red light, and its huge body gradually shrank. Finally, it turned into a red-haired young man wearing red armor and holding a crimson dragon sword. The sword was surrounded by red light, and there were runes flashing on it. It was very mysterious. Just as the two were about to fight, an incomparably gorgeous golden carriage suddenly flew over from afar. On the carriage, there was a man in a golden robe, holding a stunning beauty in each of his arms. At the same time, a powerful and domineering aura also whistled out from the carriage. The Crimson Dragon Shadow and Lung Wufeng's eyes narrowed. It's him. Mo Wuji. Mo Wuji of the Dao King clan, 9th on the Heavenly God list. Everyone looked at the newcomer with incomparable solemnity. The higher one was on the Heavenly God list, the more amazing their strength and talent. The top 10 of the Heavenly God list were known as a group of monsters. Most of them were in the 3-flower realm, but they had the ability to easily challenge those of a higher realm. It was no longer a problem for a 3-flower realm cultivator to kill a 5-chi realm cultivator. Mo Wuji was such an existence. Mo Wuji, you came at the right time. The Crimson Dragon Shadow laughed and took a step forward. It gave up on Lung Wufeng and took a step toward Mo Wuji. The Crimson Dragon sword in its hand suddenly slashed out. The sword flashed, and the flaming sword shadow rolled out like a mountain range. Chapter 1024. That's great. I can't believe that I, the Astral River Deity Monarch, who has dominated the heaven cosmos, would lose to a young junior. Talented people appear in every generation, and the new generation replaces the old. The Astral River Deity Monarch looked at Chu Kuangren and laughed with a hint of awe in his eyes. He did not ask what was going on with the space-time power. If he lost, so be it. He, the Celestial River God King, was not someone who could not afford to lose. Then, the Astral River Deity Monarch took out a jade scroll and handed it to Chu Kuangren. I've told you that anyone who passes all the stages will receive my cultivation technique. This jade scroll contains the cultivation technique that I, the Astral River Deity Monarch, have relied on to dominate the heaven cosmos. Now it's yours. Then he unleashed a palm attack into the sky. With a roar, the starry sky suddenly exploded, revealing a vast palace inside. The palace was dazzling and resplendent, and it was surrounded by countless runes. It was a marvelous sight to behold. Apart from my cultivation method, you can also choose 3 treasures from my treasury. The Astral River Deity Monarch pointed at the Astral River Treasury above him and said, "The appearance of the Astral River Treasury shocked countless sky prides on the galactic ancient path. They all looked at the starry sky with fiery eyes. So this is the Astral River Deity Monarch's treasury. That's right. I heard that there are mountains of treasures inside, and any one of them is enough to benefit a person for life. Quick, let's go in and have a look." Many figures flashed and flew towards the treasury. However, these people were all sent flying by an invisible barrier and were unable to enter at all. It was the deity monarch's barrier. Without the deity monarch's permission, no one could enter. D***. Only those who pass the final 9 stages are qualified to enter and take one of the treasures. Yeah, we're not qualified at all. Some of the sky prides could not help but shake their heads and lament. Several rays of light flew into the treasury. They were Mo Wuji, Luo Shui, Leng Wufeng, and the Crimson Dragon Shadow. They were the only ones who had passed the final 9 stages other than Chu Kuangren. The deity monarch's barrier did not stop them and allowed them to enter. Chu Kuangren glanced at it but did not head there immediately. Instead, he looked at the Astral River Deity King and asked, "What about your promise?" "Don't worry. I, the Celestial King of the Galaxy, am not one to go back on my word. Since you've passed all the trials, I'll join the Sword Spirit clan from now on and become their ally," Galaxy Deity King said with a bitter smile. Although he wanted to continue living a carefree life, he had made a bet with all the almighty beings in the past. If he went back on his word, what awaited him would definitely not be a good ending. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. In fact, he didn't really care whether the other party joined the Sword Spirit clan or not. After all, he wasn't really a member of the Sword Spirit clan. His figure flashed, speeding towards the Divine King's treasury. Not long later he appeared outside the treasury. Mo Wuji, Leng Wufeng and company walked out of the treasury with satisfied smiles on their faces. It seemed like they had gained quite a bit inside. However, when they saw Chu Kuangren, their faces instantly turned extremely gloomy. That was especially true of Leng Wufeng, whose eyes were ice-cold and filled with killing intent. "Heavenly Sword. Oh, it seems like you still have a grudge against me. That's only natural. Don't tell me you've forgotten what you've done," Leng Wufeng said coldly. "I've done too many things, so there's no need to remember every single one of them. Heaven never takes things that aren't important to heart. You killed my brother, Leng Jiufeng, and you're saying that's not important." Leng Wufeng's mouth twitched as he stared at Chu Kuangren coldly. It was as if he wanted to skin Chu Kuangren alive. "Your brother," Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he said seriously, "I'm sorry. Perhaps it's really something unimportant. I don't remember." UB** starred. A violent and cold killing intent swept out. In an instant, the surrounding space was frozen. Just as Leng Wufeng was about to attack, Mo Wuji reached out and stopped him. He said, "Let him enter the treasury first." Leng Wufeng's eyes flickered before he nodded. "Heh, you're safe for now." Chu Kuangren chuckled before he slowly walked into the treasury. "Mo Wuji, are you going to fight Sky Sword too?" Leng Wufeng asked. "That's right. You didn't want me to attack just now because you wanted him to enter the treasury and take his treasures. Once we kill him, we'll take his treasures. That's killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right?" "That's right." Mo Wuji smiled before his gaze turned serious. "However, Sky Sword's strength is not to be underestimated. I'm afraid he's not any weaker than me. I can't afford to be careless against him. There's no need to worry. I've found an unexpected treasure among the treasures. I'm confident that I can kill him." Leng Wufeng took out a prismatic crystal that contained an endless snowstorm. It was like a world of ice and snow. The heavenly frosty crystal is a treasure of the Frosty tribe. I thought it was lost for so many years, but I didn't expect to find it in this treasury. With it here, no matter how strong Sky Sword is, he can only surrender. Leng Wufeng smiled confidently. "Interesting. I want to see if Sky Sword's strength is as strong as the rumors say." The Crimson Dragon Shade chuckled. The crimson longsword in his hand was vibrating slightly as if it was excited. There was no swordsman who was not interested in Sky Sword, and the Crimson Dragon Shade was no exception. Although he did not specialize in swordsmanship, he was still considered a swordsman. Just when the few of them were discussing how to fight Sky Sword. Inside the treasury, Chu Kuangren looked at the countless treasures in front of him and could not help but be amazed. This Astral River Deity King has collected quite a lot of good stuff. He didn't want to take everything away. He would not be able to hide it from the astral river deity king. It was not his style to go back on his words and sneak around. A sky sword. At that moment, a voice was heard. It was Luo Shui. She was also choosing treasures in this treasury. Chu Kuangren walked over and saw that the man was caught in a dilemma over two treasures. One of the treasures was a sword, and the other was a broken bead. However, that bead was emanating a faint immortal glow, and there were runes flickering within it. It seemed to contain a mysterious and profound cultivation technique. Tianjian, which one of these two treasures should I choose? Luo Shui asked curiously. Chu Kuangren did not expect her to ask him that question, so he simply replied, "This is your opportunity of fortune. It's not my place to comment on it." After that, he was about to leave. However, when he passed by the broken bead, he took a second look at it. Interesting, but it's a shame that this item doesn't suit me. After Chu Kuangren said that, he turned around and left. Luo Shui immediately made up her mind and chose that bead. If it could interest Sky Sword, then it must contain some kind of mystery. In fact, she had some kind of reaction toward that bead. Although Sky Sword didn't help me, he still gave me a hint. Luo Shui stared at Chu Kuangren's back with a hint of fear in her eyes. A strange feeling welled up in her cold heart. Chapter 1025. When the primordial chaos gate opened, the heaven origin heart realm was right in front of them. Even the god kings didn't want to miss it. In addition to the god kings, many other monstrous geniuses also arrived. They looked at the primordial chaos gate with fiery eyes. A white light shone out, and a man stepped through the air. The man wore silver-white chainmail and held a long spear in his hand. He had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes, and he exuded a sharp aura. The primordial chaos gate, the heaven origin heart realm. This will be the place where Thunder Immortal Heaven achieves Tao integration. Thunder Immortal Heaven was the third sequence of the Heaven Origin Divine Temple. He was ranked above Di Xianxia in the past. In another direction, a meteor flew over, and on the meteor stood a figure shrouded in immortal radiance. This person's aura was vast, and the power of yin and yang circulated around him. The Heaven Origin Heart Realm, a secret realm formed by the heart of an ancient god of creation. Interesting. Maybe this will be my opportunity to break through to Tao integration. The person stopped in front of the primordial chaos gate and murmured. Just as he was about to enter, he saw a person slowly walking over from afar. It was a beautiful woman dressed in white. "Oh, it's you, Goddess Yoyu." The figure in immortal radiance was surprised. Goddess Yoyu glanced at him. The second sequence of the temple, Xian Yuanfeng. "You're not the only one here, right? The primordial chaos gate is very important. As far as I know, the third sequence Thunder Immortal, the sixth sequence Fierce God, the seventh sequence Yang Wang, the eighth sequence Feng Qiu, and the ninth sequence Luo Shui are all here." Xian Yuanfeng said lightly. However, Goddess Yuyu didn't care much about these people. She said lightly, "What about the first sequence? Is he here?" The first sequence of the temple was the most terrifying person among the 10 sequences. Even Xian Yuanfeng couldn't help but show a hint of fear when he mentioned this person. He hasn't come out yet, but he should send someone here. It's said that the fourth sequence of the temple is his follower. A follower could become the fourth sequence of the temple, which showed how terrifying the strength of the first sequence was. In Xian Yuanfeng's mind, this person was also the only monster who could compete with the heavenly sword. While the two were talking, a figure slowly walked over from not far away. The newcomer had a pair of golden eyes, and a faint pressure emanated from his body. The two could not help but look. She was a stunning beauty. She wore a colorful dress and held a sword of stars in her hand. His cultivation was only at the golden firmament 5 Qis. However, some of the great perfection deities in the surroundings felt threatened. This aura's monarch dual pupils. Xian Yuanfeng's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the newcomer. Not only does she have imperial pupils, she is also one of the 9 kings. If my guess is correct, she should be the former holy maiden of the heavenly star tribe, Tian Xingkai. Heavenly star colors. I've heard of it. In the past, Tian Xingying had caused a huge ruckus in the royal family because of a woman, and that woman was Tian Xingxai. Rumor has it that Heavenly Star Kai was merely an ordinary Grand Luo. How did he change so much in just a few short years? Xian Yuanfeng was surprised. Then you are going to ask the Heaven Sword. It was rumored that Heavenly Star Shadow and Heavenly Star Rainbow had been taken away by the Heavenly Sword, and their whereabouts were unknown. The other party's change must have something to do with the Sky Sword. Sky Sword. To be able to transform a Grand Luo to such an extent, did you give him the Imperial Dual Pupils and the King's Seal? With such boldness, what are you after? Goddess, you thought to herself, becoming more and more curious about Chu Kuangren. Inside the World Origin Gate, Chu Kuangren had arrived at a strange world. This place was filled with all kinds of colors, and many of them contained traces of origin energy. It was as if some kind of origin creation was brewing. This Tianyuan Heart Realm does indeed contain countless opportunities. However, where is the so-called primal chaos mysteries? Chu Kuangren was not interested in ordinary opportunities of fortune. What intrigued him the most was the origin mystery. Chu Kuangren had been wandering in the Heart Realm of Heaven for a few days. The Heart Realm was vast and boundless, but he still could not find the origin mystery. Instead, he found some other origin creations. On this day, Chu Kuangren sensed a violent energy fluctuation coming from not far ahead. It seemed like many people were fighting. Among them, there was also a familiar aura. Oh, this aura is... Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. When he arrived, he saw a woman in a colorful dress being besieged by many people, and there were many people watching the show from the surroundings. It's really her. Chu Kuangren murmured. That woman was none other than Tian Xingxai. The people who surrounded her were cultivators from the Emperor's tribe and the Hades tribe. Their leader was a young man in black armor. This young man did not make a move, but he stood in midair and emitted an extremely powerful aura that crushed the space around him. Tifiske, this woman is unlucky. I don't know where she got the Emperor's dual pupil, but the Emperor's tribe will not miss it. It looks like they're determined to get their hands on her. The Hades tribe has their eyes on her too. I wonder what they want. Is it the treasure in her hand? Look, that young man in black armor is not a simple person. I heard that he replaced Di Qianxiu and became the fourth sequence of the temple. He's an ancient demon from the Hades tribe who calls himself the Underworld God's Messenger. Underworld God's Messenger? Could he be the Underworld God's Messenger? Underworld God? Isn't that just a legend? Everyone was discussing. Chu Kuangren gradually understood what had happened from the crowd's discussions, and a playful look appeared on his face. He glanced at the so-called fourth sequence Underworld God's Messenger. He let Xiao AI analyze it for him. The conclusion that she came up with intrigued him. There was a powerful will within that person's body, and that will controlled his soul and life. It was just like his spirit exorcism seal. To be able to control a fourth sequence, could that person be the so-called underworld god? It seems that sometimes legends aren't fake. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Before he appeared in this world, was the heavenly sword not a legend too? Boom. At that moment, Tian Xingxai was at a disadvantage. Although she had grown a lot, it was still difficult for her to win against a group of Grand Luo with the help of the Underworld God's Messenger. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to lend her a hand, a figure appeared from afar. That person's body was surrounded by an overbearing resentment chi. With a swing of his sword, one cultivator after another was sent flying. This person is mine. A cold voice rang out. That person was clad in black armor and held a sword in his hand. Resentment chi emanated from his body, and beside him was another person who had the same aura. Divine ferocious, human ferocious. Are you sure you want to make me your enemy? The Underworld God's Messenger said coldly. So what if I am? The Divine Ferocious sneered. I'm sorry, but the Taoist King tribe doesn't want to miss out on this person either. At that moment, another voice rang out. Mo Tianheng of the Taoist King tribe walked over with his people. At that moment, the Hades, Taoist kings, emperors, and the Disaster Army tribe faced off against each other and fought for Tian Xingxai. Chapter 1026. The Sky Origin Heart Realm gradually fell apart. As for the various godly monarchs, they either fled or dispersed. Chu Kuangren stood in the air as he watched the godly rulers flee in fear. He played with a ruler's mark in his hand with a calm look in his eyes. Behind him, Heavenly Maiden Yu and Heavenly Starlight stared at his back with an uncontrollable fanaticism in their eyes. That was the Heavenly Sword, the supreme heaven that could even defeat a creator god. Chu Kuangren put away the ruler's mark. Time to leave. He planned to return to the Sword Spirit tribe. This time, he had reaped many rewards in the Heavenly Origin Heart Realm. The Heavenly Origin creation god had perished, but his heart was still present, and it had fused into his body, waiting for him to refine the power contained within. He believed that after refining this Heavenly Origin heart, he would advance further in the Tao integration stage. The Sky Origin Heart Realm collapsed, and the Origin Gate disappeared. However, what happened in the Sky Origin Heart Realm this time was enough to shock the entire universe. Especially at the last moment, the news of the Heavenly Sword emerging victorious against the Creator God had spread like wildfire. The various godly rulers were all shocked. Somewhere in the universe, in the ancient chaos, two consciousnesses were converging. The Sky Origin God's resurrection has failed. An old voice spoke. Isn't this exactly what we want? This universe no longer needs an ancient god of creation. Another voice spoke. This voice was younger and had a sense of vitality. But there's one thing that I'm curious about. How did the Heavenly Sword defeat the Creator God? What kind of secret is he hiding? Perhaps the Creator God is too weak. After all, he's been sealed away for so many years, so he doesn't have much energy left. Is that really it? What else could it be? No matter what, we should pay more attention to the Heavenly Sword. Compared to the Heavenly Sword, Feng Mo, it's time for the 10 calamities pawns that you've placed in the Pangacosmos to make their move. We've been fighting against the Pangacosmos for so many years, it's time to put an end to it. The young voice said. The old voice called Demonic Encounter said, to conquer the Pangacosmos, we must first take care of two people. First, the strongest demonic god, Wu Jun, and second, the Pangacosmos' biggest anomaly, Chu Kuangren. I have no regrets. Back then, it was only you and Xianxia. But now, with me, the Beacon Sovereign, the three of us are more than enough to deal with him. But Chu Kuangren, he's just a young junior. Why should we care? This person cannot be ignored. Xianxia said that if this person continues to grow, he will be an even more troublesome existence than Wu Hui. Interesting. When will you make your move? I'm already preparing. I heard that back then, you and Xianxia set up the 10 tribulations in the Panga universe and the 9 kings in the Heavens Yuan universe. But now, more than half of the 10 tribulations in the Panga universe are dead, and the 9 kings have become complicated because of the Heavenly Sword. Do your arrangements still work? At least the 10 tribulations have brought us a lot of information about the Panga universe. Now, the remaining 10 tribulations will exert their last bit of energy to eradicate the greatest anomaly of the Panga universe for us. Inside the Divine Mecha Clan. A dozen or so strong cultivators of the Divine Mecha Clan sat cross-legged in a circle, and a certain kind of chi was resonating between them. This chi flowed back and forth on these people. Then this chi soared into the sky and formed a figure in the void. Chu Kuangren. Or rather, the Heavenly Sword. The dozen or so strong cultivators of the Divine Mecha Clan let out a low roar as their eyes lit up. Countless runes suddenly rose from their surroundings. These runes circulated and contained endless mysterious creations. Vaguely, threads of silk connected these runes together. These threads were the path of fate. It was the path of fate of all living beings in this world. At this moment, the top-notch cultivators of the Divine Mecha Clan were using their ultimate techniques to try and deduce the Heavenly Sword's path of fate. These people were all top-notch cultivators. The weakest among them was at least a grand heavenly realm cultivator, and there were even a few godly kings among them. The Divine Mecha Clan's resources were extremely shocking. They were even slightly stronger than the ancient king tribe. The boundless great Tao is interconnected. With the divine mechas as the guide, the path of fate shall appear. Among these people, the godly king who was the leader suddenly opened his eyes and channeled his power to the extreme, merging the power of Taoist laws into the countless runes. Just as the deduction technique reached its peak, among the thousands of paths of fate, a thick darkness that could not be dispelled suddenly appeared. That darkness seemed to contain an existence that could not be looked at directly, and it emanated a terrifying aura. The moment this darkness appeared, the countless paths of fate shattered, and the runes instantly turned into ashes. The group of strong cultivators of the divine mecha clan suffered a backlash on the spot, and they were sent flying with blood spewing out of their mouths. Some of them even died on the spot. Even God-King level existences were not much better off. How is this possible? The godly king of the divine mecha clan widened his eyes in disbelief. Even the divine mecha clan's supreme secret technique, the divine mecha great Tao derivation, could not deduce the heavenly sword's path of fate, and they even suffered such a severe backlash. What is his background? This is impossible. This is impossible. The existence in the darkness is too unbelievable. Everyone looked at each other, their faces full of shock and confusion. After hearing the news that the heavenly sword had defeated a god of creation, the divine mecha clan wanted to deduce his background. They had tried in the past, but to no avail. Therefore, they decided to mobilize all of the most powerful cultivators of the divine mecha clan and activate the divine mecha clan's supreme secret technique. However, they did not expect that the supreme secret technique that even the Tao integration stage godly kings could deduce would fail. Not only did they fail, but the strength of the backlash was unbearable, and all of them were severely injured. The leader of the divine mecha clan felt as if his Tao had been shattered. The heavenly sword cannot be deduced, cannot be deduced. After a long while, the divine mecha king sighed and listed the heavenly sword as a taboo. No one was allowed to deduce his fate. Divine Mecha King, do you think the heavenly sword would be able to break the shackles on our clan? At this moment, an old man suddenly spoke. Hearing this, the divine Mecha King's eyes lit up. If it's the heavenly sword, perhaps there really is a possibility. An existence that even the great Taoist divine mecha derivation could not deduce meant that the fate of such a person was no longer under the control of the great Taoist Tao. Only an existence that was not under the control of the great Taoist divine mecha derivation could break the shackles on the divine mecha clan. The heavenly sword. Send a message to Heavenly Maiden Yu immediately. Tell her to try her best to befriend the heavenly sword, or bring him to the divine mecha clan. The divine mecha clan's divine mecha king said. This was the only hope that the divine mecha clan had seen in countless years. No matter what, he had to try. At this moment, Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation in the Sword Spirit Clan, refining the heart of heaven. Hence, he was not aware of what was happening in the Divine Mecha Clan. However, as if he had sensed something while he was in closed-door meditation, he looked into the distant sky. Oh, the me from the Pangu Cosmos is about to come out. Chapter 1027. Tian Yuan 9th Mainland. Sky Sword Chu Kuangren had come out from his closed-door meditation. All these years, he had been in seclusion and had not directly participated in the war between the two universes. After coming out of seclusion, then he received a message from God King Sikong and started a meeting. At the meeting, "Yo, isn't this the famous Sky Sword who could even kill the six-eyed king? Long time no see." The Yuanting Heavenly King said sarcastically when he saw Chu Kuangren. Not only him. When the other godly kings saw Chu Kuangren, they were more or less displeased, especially the ancient godly kings. They had a good relationship with the six-eyed. They were comrades. "We're fighting with our lives on the front lines, but you're enjoying all kinds of resources in the rear. Is your life very comfortable?" Another god king said. It was Luo Yunxiu, one of the 9 kings. The other party already had the qualifications to participate in the high-level meeting. "Sky Sword, I don't know how strong you were in the past. But on the battlefield, battle merits speak for everything. Your performance is truly disappointing. The Origin sect disciple, Wu Mian, said indifferently. His eyes were filled with deep disappointment. Don't say that. Maybe he hasn't recovered from the battle with the Nether God. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? The Dark Knight God King chuckled. He had also found out about the fake news that Chu Kuangren released. Chu Kuangren was really curious. How many people did Jixuan sell fake information to? At the meeting, many people saw the sky sword and ridiculed him. Some say he is a rice worm. They occupied the resources but did not participate in the battle. Luo Shui, Ling Fei, Long Chue, and other members of the Round Sky Society stood behind him, silently enduring all the rumors and slanders with him. Seeing this, God King Sikong felt helpless. Heaven Sword. Although he didn't make a move, his strength was not small. If he really was a traitor, then it would be too troublesome. Are you done talking? Chu Kuangren replied. With heaven watching over the 9th continent, this place is impregnable and unbreakable. Isn't that enough? If it weren't for us protecting you at the front lines, who knows how many times your 9th continent would have been broken into? Yuan Teng snorted coldly. Enough, stop arguing. God King Sikong stepped forward to smooth things over. Then, the conference began. The conference was mainly about summarizing the gains and losses over the years. Then, he gave everyone some rewards. Those who were able to attend this meeting had more or less battle merits. The only exception was Sky Sword. He had not left the 9th mainland for decades. Seeing this, the crowd was even more dissatisfied with the other party. No matter how strong he is, he's just a worm. Sigh, what a pity. What's a pity? He killed Six-Eyed, so it's best if he doesn't have any battle achievements. That way, we'll have an excuse to kill him in the future. If he has battle achievements and prestige, we'll have to think twice before killing him. Everyone secretly communicated. After the meeting, Sikong Deity King left Di Tian behind. Di Tian, I will make you lose the 11th mainland. What? Hearing this, the Heavenly Emperor was stunned. God King Sikong briefly explained the matter of their people in the Pangu cosmos. Di Tian Huang was a senior figure in the Tian Yuan cosmos. The imperial clan was born because of him. God King Sikong was very confident in him. I see. The great Heavenly Emperor was enlightened. This matter is extremely important. You must not reveal it. Understood. The 11th mainland of Tian Yuan. The soldiers were guarding the place. They were well equipped and one look was enough to tell that they were experienced warriors. At this moment, rumbling sounds could be heard from the sky. A large army had arrived. The leader was wearing battle armor and holding a huge sword. He wore a golden crown and exuded a supreme aura. It was the overarching Heaven Immortal Emperor and his immortal court army. Enemy attack. You really don't know what's good for you. This is the place where the Imperial clan guards. How dare you invade? That's right. Everyone sneered. In their opinion, with the unparalleled war general Di Tian personally guarding this place, it was impregnable and impossible to break through. The overarching Heaven Immortal Emperor and the rest coming here was in vain. The overarching Heaven Immortal Emperor ordered the Immortal Court army to attack. The two sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. The terrifying power instantly caused the entire mainland to be in turmoil. At this moment, in the void, a powerful Emperor aura exploded. The Heavenly Emperor had appeared. How dare you invade the 11th mainland? You're courting death. The Heavenly Emperor snorted coldly. His golden hair danced in the wind and his eyes were like lightning. He was like a majestic lion with an extremely domineering aura. He soared into the sky and attacked the overarching Heaven Immortal Emperor. Although he knew that he would lose today, he had to fight this battle. Otherwise, it would seem fake. Fight. The overarching Heaven Immortal Emperor shouted coldly. The Daos in his body roared at the same time. The huge sword in his hand slashed at the Heavenly Emperor, tearing the void into two. The Heavenly Emperor tried his best to block the attack, pretending to be exhausted. So powerful. Heavenly Emperor, I'm going to take your mainland today. the overarching heaven immortal emperor said in high spirits. The two of them fought fiercely. Every time they collided, the power that erupted could shatter mountains and rivers, tear the sky apart, and an energy storm swept out, destroying everything. This battle was very intense. It was a rare peak battle in the void battlefield. Everyone's heart palpitated. Bang! At this moment, the heavenly emperor fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. Everyone gasped when they saw this scene. What? Even the heavenly emperor was no match for him. The heavenly emperor lives up to his reputation. The heavenly emperor said with a pale face. In the heavenly Yuan divine palace. Divine King Xikong was watching the battle in front of a screen. He smiled in satisfaction. The heavenly emperor is acting well. At this moment, the heavenly emperor shouted, "Everyone retreat." The show was almost over. It was time to leave. "No, we will fight to the death." A man rushed out and shouted. It was Di Feitian. He was also on this mainland. The 11th mainland is very important to the Heaven Yuan universe. If the Panga universe takes it, the consequences will be unimaginable. "We will fight to the death," Di Feitian shouted with bloodshot eyes. Everyone was infected by his emotions and echoed his words. "That's right, we won't retreat. At most we'll die." The heavenly emperor was stunned. What the hell is this guy doing? Retreat quickly. However, he could not reveal the traitor. He said loudly, "Everyone, it's more important to stay alive. Let's leave first. We'll think of a way to take back the 11th mainland in the future." He tried to persuade them. However, a portion of them refused to retreat. "Primogenitor, leave first. I'll cover your retreat," Di Feitian said solemnly. In the divine palace, Divine King Xikong frowned when he saw this. Since when did Di Feitian become so righteous? "Humph, I'll grant your wish." The heavenly emperor snorted coldly. For the sake of the great plan, he had to take this place. Anyone who stood in his way had to die. The heavenly emperor must have participated in the plan, which was why he was defeated on purpose. As for Di Feitian, he was just a fool. It did not matter if he was killed. He raised his hand and slashed. The terrifying power of the Tao Law locked onto his opponent. However, at this moment, another sword shadow pierced through the clouds and slashed down. Bang! The two sword shadows collided and both shattered. "Who allowed you to be arrogant in front of the heavens?" An indifferent voice was heard. In the heavenly Yuan divine palace, Divine King Xikong stood up in shock. Why is he here? 7017K. Chapter 1030. Welcome to the Heaven and Earth Sleeve Dimension. Chu Kuangren smiled at the young man in front of him. It was Chu Kuangren who had placed this assassin into his Heaven and Earth Sleeve Dimension the moment Renning was attacked. "Who are you?" The young assassin stared at Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. Deep within his eyes, there was also fear. Chu Kuangren's methods were unimaginable. To be able to move a heavenly Tao master like him into this strange dimension without anyone noticing, the person must at least be an immortal. Against an immortal, he was defenseless. "Who sent you to kill Renning?" Chu Kuangren did not answer but asked instead. "As an assassin, I will not betray my employer easily," the assassin said coldly. "Is that so?" Chu Kuangren chuckled and slowly opened his palm. A lifelike and beautiful red fire lotus swayed in the air. He tossed the fire lotus out, and it quickly landed on the assassin's body. What is this?" The assassin's expression changed slightly. He could feel something on his body being burned. He channeled his energy to resist the flames, but it was futile. The intense pain was constantly assaulting his mind. The pain of having one's sins burned was not something an ordinary person could endure. However, Chu Kuangren had the ability to magnify this pain by 10 or even 100 times, making the assassin wish he was dead. Not many people would be able to hold their tongues under such torture. Obviously, this assassin was the same. He confessed that the mastermind behind this was sent by a top-notch orthodoxy in the firmament star. The reason why they wanted to kill Renning was not just because of her. Instead, they planned to frame another aristocratic family in the empire, the Bai family, after they had killed her. Whether it was the Ren family or the Bai family, they all had one thing in common. That was absolute loyalty to the empire. Someone wanted to instigate a war between the families and plunge the empire into chaos. It seems like the empire is unstable internally as well. Chu Kuangren murmured. He casually burned the assassin into ashes and informed Gu Linglong about the matter, asking her to investigate it. After managing the empire for so many years, Gu Linglong was quite adept at handling such matters. She soon reaped the rewards. This time, it is the heavenly mirror orthodoxy that is stirring up trouble. However, the most troublesome thing is not the heavenly mirror orthodoxy, but the extraterrestrial civilizations standing behind this orthodoxy. Planet Chiyu. Gu Linglong said indifferently. The backbone of the empire looked at each other in dismay upon hearing her words. Planet Seven Plume. This civilization is not to be underestimated. Unlike other civilizations, when the civilization came into contact with us, they surrendered without much of a fight. They did not lose much of their civilization strength. I've heard some rumors. All these years, Seven Plume Planet has been trying to recruit some of the defeated civilizations to rebel against Firmament Star. I've been sending people to investigate, and I wanted to prepare the evidence and report it to the higher-ups. I didn't expect them to make a move first. The Chaos Dao Master said coldly. Since that's the case, there's no need to say anything else. Just send out your troops and beat them up. As a fighter in the Empire, the Sky Fiend Dao Lord had always believed that force was the best way to resolve conflicts. We can send out our troops, but not now. If we fight now, we might alert the enemy. Gu Linglong said, recently, Planet Seven Plume has sent a few emissaries here. Let's meet them first. What about the heavenly mirror orthodoxy that assassinated the Ren clan's daughter? Traitorous. There's no need to keep them alive. Gu Linglong said coldly. In the imperial city, a few cultivators were gathered together. The leader of the group was a woman in a long black dress. She had long slender legs and a slim figure. These people were the emissaries sent by Planet Seven Plume. Everyone, I'm sure you've heard about the heavenly mirror orthodoxy. The woman in the black dress said indifferently. Everyone nodded with a serious look in their eyes. I didn't expect the Firmament Empire to find out about the heavenly mirror orthodoxy so quickly. I wonder if we've been exposed. I don't think so. Otherwise, Empress Linglong would have taken action long ago. There's no need to panic. All right. The woman in the black dress had a cold look in her eyes. We've come to Firmament Star to assassinate Empress Linglong in the name of offering. If we succeed, the Firmament Empire will be without a leader and will definitely fall into chaos. When that time comes, with our combined strength, we can definitely take down the Empire and replace it. Hearing this, everyone's eyes were filled with excitement and determination. They all knew. Coming to assassinate Empress Linglong was a very dangerous task. Whether they succeeded or not, they would most likely die. However, for the sake of Planet Seven Plume, for the glory of their civilization, they would not hesitate. In a few days, it'll be time to meet Empress Linglong. Try not to go out for the next few days, and don't talk about anything related to the heavenly mirror orthodoxy, the woman in the black dress said. All right. Understood. 3 days later, the emissaries of Planet Seven Plume arrived at the Imperial Palace to meet Empress Linglong. Looking at Empress Linglong, who sat on the throne and held supreme authority over dozens of galaxies, the woman in the black dress and the others could not help but exclaim, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Everyone bowed. There's no need to stand on ceremony, Empress Linglong said indifferently. She looked at the woman in the black dress and the others, her eyes as calm as still water, without the slightest emotion. On the contrary, the woman in the black dress felt that when the others looked at them, there was a faint hostility in their eyes. Was it because they were from another civilization? The woman in the black dress felt a little uneasy. Your Majesty, we're here today to represent Planet Seven Plume and offer 10 billion spiritual marrows and 100,000 immortal crystals as a token of our sincerity. 10 billion spiritual marrows, especially the 100,000 immortal crystals, was not an easy amount even for a civilization with immortals. At the very least, Planet 7 Plume appeared to be sincere. I thank Planet 7 Plume on behalf of the Empire, Gu Linglong said calmly. The woman in the black dress looked around. Although everyone was very wary of them, she suddenly felt a little more confident when she thought about the power of the trump card in her hand. Your Majesty, apart from the spiritual marrows and immortal crystals, we have another treasure to offer to the Empire, the woman in the black dress said. Oh, that's interesting. May I know what treasure it is? Your Majesty, please have a look. The woman in the black dress took out a white crystal the size of a fist. The crystal glowed with a faint white immortal glow and had mysterious patterns intertwining with it. It exuded an incredibly powerful space-time force. This item is called the space-time crystal. Its greatest function is to freeze space-time, the woman in the black dress said. In the next instant, the white crystal shone with a dazzling white light. A white light barrier spread out and enveloped the entire imperial palace. In an instant, even the immortals felt an incredibly powerful binding force that made it difficult for them to move. Oh no! Everyone's expression changed. At that moment, the woman in the black dress and the others moved. The moment they activated the space-time crystal, they flew toward Empress Linglong. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.